You are live.
Okay, we are live now.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the special budget meeting on Tuesday, January 12th. We're doing a teleconference, video conferencing. Due to COVID-19 and recommendations by Waterloo Region Public Health to exercise social distancing and public gathering thresholds, the Township Council meetings are currently being held electronically. Members of the public may watch this open meeting electronically by accessing the live stream on the Township's YouTube page that is available at calendar.northdumfries.ca/council. Under the video column, click on the link for the meeting date that you wish to watch. You do not need to be a YouTube account to watch the live stream. You do not have to have a YouTube account. Members of the public interested in speaking to the draft 2021 budget may register to attend the virtual meetings or may submit written comments by emailing clerk@northdumfries.ca before 2 p.m. on Tuesday, January 12th. Please note the 10-year capital forecast will be discussed at the special council meeting scheduled on January 28th at 6 p.m. I'd now like to call the meeting to order, and I'd like approval of the agenda, please.
So moved by Councillor Gillespie and seconded by Councillor Rowland that Council adopt the January 12th, 2021 special budget meeting agenda as presented, and that all correspondence circulated to Council in advance of this meeting and made publicly available on the Township's website will form part of the public record for this meeting of Council. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none, items for consideration. Report 5.1, our financial report 01-2021, 2021 draft budget update. And the 10-year forecast will be discussed on January 28th at 6 p.m. So we are going to go into the memo that we were sent out. The first item of discussion, I believe, is that the Safe Restart funding be received in 2020, as announced by the Province of Ontario in December 2020 in the amount of $94,000, be transferred to the Safe Restart Fund Reserve to offset future COVID-19 pandemic-related costs. Is that how we're going? We're going to discuss this, or what are we doing, Shelley?
So I'm just going to walk through what I did was basically after last night, I summarized what council had identified at different items, as well as items that were identified from staff as well. Right. So the financial report number 01-2021 was attached to last night's agenda as well as to tonight's agenda. So the resolution has been cut and paste and put into the memo that went out this afternoon and added to. So the first part of this, the draft budget amendments, I'm just going to run through quickly. So A is that the additional funding we received for the COVID restart, the $94,000. The reason it's highlighted in yellow was that the original resolution said 92,000, but it is actually 94, and we've received that money. So it's asking council to endorse that we receive the fund and put it into a reserve fund. That we allocate the unspent reserve funds from the 2019 capital projects, which came in under budget, and then we allocate that money over to the infrastructure reserve. And the estimated cost for the personal protective equipment and materials due to the COVID pandemic be increased by $11,935 because we received better figures after we released the budget book. So those costs are increased. And then we transfer the balance of the Safe Restart Reserve Fund from the first funding we received, the $222,000, and we use that money to offset the balance of this $66,180 and the $11,935. So that means that the first grant that we received, the $222,000, will be completely utilized in the 2021 budget, and we'll have more money that's allocated towards the PP&E for the COVID, and we'll have money in the infrastructure. So that's the first four. They're actually It's kind of one action, but it's three different things. So then if you go to page 2, that was the item we discussed last night with Chief Shantz, and that was the repurchase of the battery-powered positive pressure ventilation fan. Long word, $7,000 new grant that we received. And so that's just that council would receive and authorize that we could allocate that money. And then number 3, so that the capital projects being carried forward for 21. So the $10,000 procurement in the original resolution, it just indicated the $10,000 for this procurement project. We've expanded that so that we actually indicate that it was already funded in the 2020 budget, and we're funding it from that 2019 capital reserve fund. So there's no net increase in the budget. We also, with the discussions last night, staff found that the fire tablets, we had added the new amount for 2021, which is just the stands and installation, but the actual tablet purchase was budgeted in 2020. And so this is an additional carry forward project, and it was already funded from the modernization grant. So it's just clarifying that project is going to get finished up in 21. This part 4, this was in the original report requesting the direction for the indoor ice strategy. So I'll get to that in a minute. Is there any questions about any of the items, the $7,000 for the fire department or these two bring forward items?
I don't see anybody's hand, so go ahead, Shelley.
Okay. So then I'm going to skip down to on the next page, page 3, I believe, bottom page 2, you'll see it says item 4. So the next steps of the ICE strategy require direction from council as per the December 14th, 2020 council meeting. I'm sorry, the years are becoming a bit of a blur. Should be 2020. So the resolution, this would be part of the resolution that we're asking council to consider, and that would be that the 2021 capital budget be amended to include phase 1 preparation of the design drawings from the twinning of arenas at the NDCC in the amount of $375,000 and with $50,000 funded from the Center for the Community Group and the balance from the Energy Plus Reserve. And that staff revise the 10-year capital forecast for discussion on at the January 28th meeting with the following. So we would ensure that the construction of the twin pad is in 2024 and 25. The preparation of the design drawings for the adaptive reuse of the ACC will be done in 2023. The construction of the adaptive reuse of the ACC will be in 2025 and 2026. And that staff remove from the 10-year capital forecast any costs that were related to the ice plant upgrades and associated works.
Okay, so those last 4 items in regards to the ice are for discussion on the 28th for further discussion. So not for tonight. So is there a mover and seconder for this?
So actually the resolution is, before we go to mover and seconder, this is for consideration after we finish discussion, because this is actually being presented as potentially being passed by council tonight, which means if it's passed tonight, that we would be going ahead and starting the preparation of the design drawings.
Okay, so you want that discussion now? Is that what you're saying, Ms. Detto?
Yeah, so I'll just, before we go to that discussion, just so you notice, we've on page 3, there are some other.
We don't have 3 pages, we have 2. Or I have 2 pages, I don't have 3 pages. So that's what I mean. This is because Ashley gave me a new updated papers. So I don't have 3 pages, I have 2, and you read everything out on the 2.
Okay.
This was the memo that was circulated to all of council this afternoon.
I have 3.
I have 2. Well, yeah, I have 2.
Is this, are you looking at resolutions, Mayor Foxton, or are you looking at the actual memo?
I'm looking at the resolution. Okay,
Yeah.
so where is the memo?
It's the memo. That's 3 pages.
Okay, so All right, this might be it. Then we have 3 pages here. Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
So
so,
on page 3, you said?
yeah, so just so that is the whole first part of the resolution. Then the last 3, on page 3, the last 3 items I identified were the fireworks. And that would be on page 41 is the discussion, and the total amount was set at 25,000, and there's no offsetting revenue. That was raised last night. So council may want to consider whether to make an adjustment there. And then the Gypsy Moth program, there is no funding that's in the 2021 budget. And just that, based on the cyclical nature that the township is only able to do remedial work on township properties, a communication program would be established to assist. Expanded internet, speed signals, and tax rate reduced to 0. So do you want to start with the twinning, or do you want to start with the fireworks?
Council, what do you want? Do you want to start with the 20, get the big one out of the way? Okay, let's go ahead with the 20.
Well, why don't we go from 1 to 5 the way it's written on the agenda?
The 20 is not on there, so you want to leave the 20 for last.
Yeah, the twinning is before the 1 to 5. It's kind of like a,
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said we were talking about that after.
well, it's up to you. Do you want to deal with it first or at the end? That's up to council. We're going to deal with the fireworks. That might be an easy one. Start with
We'll
those.
start with 1 to 5. Let's go. This is getting a little silly. Go ahead.
So the fireworks, I guess the discussion and the question, Councillor McCurry has a question.
Council McCray.
Okay, I was the one that raised that last night, so I've got a few comments to make about the fireworks. I noticed that the cost of putting on that event has been going up. We have in the past gotten sponsors to keep the costs down, but we aren't proposing that this year. But what I'd like to say is, like, I'm not against the fireworks. I'm not concerned about the event itself. And I think having Canada Day festivities and fireworks is a great thing to do. But my concern is how the event is being financed. The entire amount to $25,000 is all coming straight out of tax dollars. And I think what we need to do, for an example, is look at what's going on our neighboring township in Wilmot. For example, Wilmot has 2 fireworks displays. They have one in New Dundee and Victoria Day. They also have an event in New Hamburg on Canada Day, and both these events are entirely funded by community donations. They get sponsors, they go door to door. I think in New Hamburg, they actually charge an admission fee to help cover the costs. So, and also in Clyde, right in our own township, they have a fireworks display in Ward 4, and it is also entirely managed by, it's entirely community driven. The fireworks are donated. All the money that's used to put on that event is donated. And I understand that it's a very enjoyable, very good event. So we've got 3 examples there of other communities putting on these types of events where it's not using any taxpayer money. And my concern is that the cumulative impact of doing this year over year, it becomes quite significant. We spend $25,000 a year. So obviously in 10 years, we've spent $250,000 or more on this event. I think that would be good that we start considering some other way to finance the event so it doesn't have such an impact on our tax base.
How did you get $250,000 out of 3 years of fireworks?
I said over 10 years. A
If it
cumulative
carries over,
effect.
correct. So what
Yeah.
we're dealing with this year. Clyde does get a waiver of, we do not cost in the park, which is included in the 25,000. We do not cost in the staff cleanup, which is included. So those things too. So it's not free in Clyde. Councilor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the Township of North Dumfries we have one official fireworks, which happens to be held in air. It was held at the NDCC, I think, at one time as well. I remember the event there with Rick Mercer. So we have had it at other places, but we have one official one. The one in Clyde is one that we help assist, but it's not our official one. I think people across the township, people I've talked to who live in Ward 3 and Ward 4 have come to the one in Ayr. So I can say that it's definitely a township-wide event. I think we should continue to fund the full 25,000. I think businesses and community groups have no money this year to donate to fireworks. I think it'd be, if we could have fireworks this year, who knows if we could have it. If we could have it, I think it'd be a really positive thing for people to have some sort of event they could go to and feel positive about things in our society right now. So I'm in favor of funding the 25,000.
Councillor Ossner.
I agree 100% with what Councillor Rowland just said. There's no way we're going to be having fireworks in May this year. We're not going to have any gatherings of significance together. So we've already saved $50,000, 25,000 from last year, 25,000 from this year. So so this burden of the last 2 years is non-existent. We did say that if there was a means to raise any money for this, that we would do it just like we did 2 years ago, and we would do what we could. But this was put in there to finance just in case we couldn't come up with the full amount of money. And it's something for the community. It's something positive for the community. It brings the community together. And you know, if we're gonna look at spending money like a CRA report, and all we're gonna do is take money from our residents and not give back, and do something for them that makes them happy, brings the community together, old and young. I mean, I'm sorry, but that's what community is about. And if spending $25,000 over a year brings the community together, great. If there's people out in other wards that just stomp their feet and say, I'm not going there because they don't like Ayr, that's their choice. They don't have to come. But this is for the residents of North Dumfries. It's something positive, and I don't think it's something that should leave because we're going to go and knock on the doors of businesses and residents and ask them for more money. So this one time I'd like to stop asking for handouts and do something for the people.
Councillor Gillespie, do you have any comments?
Maybe we should, if it's a North Dumfries for the whole community, maybe we should consider different years moving it to different wards in the township. I'm sure we could manage that somehow. So I kind of doubt if we're going to be able to do it myself, but yeah.
Councillor Ossner?
If you look at any other community, like in Kitchener, Waterloo, all the areas that they do the fireworks, they do it where the mass of people is.
It's not just that. I'm not sure that you have the space we would require to do that type of fireworks. As Chief Shantz is shaking your head, there is not an ample space to do the degree of fireworks that we do.
Well, maybe we can not do as huge of a display. Maybe that's the thing. We can cut back on the cost by having a smaller display.
And if I may, Councillor Ossner, before you do, we're pretty healthy, but we're not throwing money away. We don't throw money away at a lot of things. But I believe that, see, a lot of people believe a township should be run, or a municipality should be run like a business. I believe it's a lifestyle. I believe people choose their community for a certain lifestyle. They don't pay their taxes just to get their roads done, just to have fire and police and ambulance service. They want a lifestyle. If you look at other municipalities, and you're right, Wilmot and New Hamburg and Baden do run all that. They have $1 million donors. And I talk to Les Armstrong all the time, and he says, oh, I just got another $1 million donated. This guy wants to put this trail through this area. He's paying for the whole shot. That's great. We don't have those donors, but we do have a healthy, that the taxpayers have put into the taxes. Some of them will say they want it just to pay for the bare essentials, but they're the same ones that come out and enjoy the good night and the good PR. So I believe in creating a lifestyle in your municipality, not just in giving bare essentials, because it is a sense of community. And the benefit from Clyde, if you didn't have that firefighter and those few donors, Councillor Gillespie, I don't think you'd have what you have in Clyde. It was the goodwill of those people to make it happen. And then when they found out they weren't doing it quite right, the township stepped up and said, okay, we'll take care of the cost for the park. Our chief checks them out to make sure everything is done right. So that's staff time and that. And and we want it to continue to happen because it's a community. We want to create community. I want to create community. Councillor Osner, I didn't let you put your hand up. Go ahead now.
That's okay. I'm not gonna beat a dead horse. I'd like to see this happen. I'm 100% in favor for it. So if you want to go to a vote, go ahead.
Do you want to vote, folks? Yes, Councillor Rowland said. Councillor McCreary, yes?
No, we don't have to go to a vote on this. I mean, I already know I'm going to be outvoted. But I do want to raise my concern about this. I think I've raised it every year. And I do think it's a valid concern. Like I said, I have nothing against the festivities. I have nothing against fireworks. I think it's great to create community, and community is being created here and in other places. But this doesn't have to be financed with tax dollars. That's not what's done in other areas. I'm concerned about what it's costing, but I know that I've got 3 fellow councillors, well, 2 councillors at least, and a mayor, they're going to want to continue with the event. So there's no point in bringing it to vote. But Councillor Osner, you made a comment that you didn't think the fireworks are going to happen this year.
I don't think we're going to be in a state with the COVID. We're not going to be in a state where we can have people get together.
No, I have to agree with Councillor Osner.
They're not going to let us gather in groups until we have 70% herd immunity. That's not going to happen until late this year. So I highly doubt that there's going to be fireworks, because I don't think we'll be legally able to hold it.
A lot of the discussion is that people will not get immunization till late fall, winter. So we're probably looking at 2022 for fireworks. Councillor Rowland.
But then having said that, does it make more sense than just to not have the fireworks this year, just cancel it and take it out of the budget? I mean, why are we having a discussion about something that in all likelihood is not going to happen? Maybe we should just take it right out of the budget and postpone it until next year.
I would like to leave it there to roll over into next year if we don't have it. But if by some miracle COVID does come to an end, this may be our kickoff, as in goodbye to COVID. So we can always be hopeful. And Councillor McCreary, I know a lot of mayors and a lot of municipalities, and the amount of money they spend on their social events, and it's quite significant compared to North Dumfries. And that includes Wilmot. And they don't fundraise for everything. They may for the tax, for the fireworks and that, but they don't do it for everything. They don't. And so I think you're in error there. I don't know of any municipality that Wellesley puts a lot of out there. So does Woolwich. And the 3 cities, it's phenomenal what they put out for their tax, for their constituents. Councillor Gillespie, what do you think?
Well, I agree that I don't think it's going to happen this year. So I guess we leave it in just in the hope that something can happen, because we'll need a big party when this is all over for sure.
I agree. Maybe we'll put it to Christmas or New Year next year so that we can really celebrate COVID being gone. Let's hope it's gone by then. So do we want to vote as a recorded vote for record?
We're not actually changing the budget. We're leaving the budget book as presented. So if you don't want to vote on it, you could just leave it and go to the next item.
Your options, councillors? No, Councillor McCreary?
Oh, I was just going to say, we could look at this again when we get to item 5, because if we think we're not going to hold it anyway, we're pretty certain we're not going to hold it anyway. If we take it out of the budget, we take that $25,000 out, that's going to reduce our tax rate.
And I'm not in favor of taking it out. I'd like to leave it there in case we have a miracle and COVID ends. And if we don't, I'd like to roll it into next year. But that's my opinion. And I'm only one opinion. But at getting to 5, we'll get to 5 later then. So the fireworks, are we taking it out, folks, or are we leaving it in? What is yes?
You might as well leave it in, because it'll be there. If we hold it next year, then we won't have to budget for it next year.
Councillor Roman.
Okay, let's leave it in.
Councillor McCreary?
I'm not proposing a motion.
No, I'm not asking you a motion. Leave it in or take it out.
Well, I'm just saying you should reduce the cost by trying to fundraise. I never said cancel the event completely. I'm saying take a look at how it's being financed. Now, are there
But
ways to,
you did ask that we take it out, and I was trying to get council's feel for that. Do we leave it in or take it out?
are you asking me?
You were the one that stated that you would, so you're saying take it out of this year's budget? Because that's what you stated a couple minutes ago.
I was saying that when we get down to item 5 and we're talking about taking things out to reduce the tax rate, you could look at it as being one of the items you take out. Because if we don't think we're going to be holding it anyway, maybe you should take it out under item 5.
Okay. So do we want to just leave it as is right now, Councillor Ossner?
Sorry, I don't understand. Yesterday, Councilor McCreary was opposed to going down to a 0% budget because she thought that we should stay as we are. And now she wants to take the fireworks out to make a 0% budget possibly. So I'm not sure if taking the fireworks out is just a tool to get down there, because there's many things in the budget that we can take out. And, you know, I don't think we should, you know, be using the one thing that we give back to the community as a carrot.
Councillor McCreary?
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. If we're going to take something, I'm just saying, if we are going to take some things out, you might as well look at that one, because we don't even think we're going to be holding the fireworks. Otherwise, we're going to be taking something else out that we might actually be doing. So that's the problem.
Let's carry on. We'll carry on. The fireworks remain right now. Next is the Gypsy Moth Program. Can I ask a question about the Gypsy Moth Program, CEO McNeely? So we're talking about doing just township properties. Would we make spraying available to the residents if they pay for it?
Madam Mayor, the program I suggested related to the boulevard trees and trees in our parks, we would use the banding of burlap, which is one of the recommended courses that has been identified as a way of mitigating against the gypsy moth. The spraying is done by, well, depending upon the size of the land we're talking about, either by helicopter or by plane. Okay. There is a permit process that has to be undertaken. So no, we would not coordinate that for an individual private landowner. They can make those arrangements through a service, as well as securing their permits or permissions to be able to actually undertake the aerial spray program.
You know, McNeely, isn't the burlap a time-consuming event because you have to be there to actually pick them and catch them in the burlap or such? I was watching a documentary on it, so you have to go out every day and get them off.
Yeah, well, it depends on how bad the infestation is, but certainly at least 2 or 3 times a week, yes, you would go through. So what you do, you would zone the area, and so you would do a rotational. So you might take urban air and divide it into thirds and deal with on a rotational basis in that district on the given day. And
what if like you said, by air, and that makes a lot of sense, or helicopter, whatever, but could you manually spray?
So given the size of the trees, they vary. I mean, we've got everything from the subdivisions, which might have 70 millimeter caliper, to, you know, portions of the trees on Piper, where you've got a more mature neighborhood, you know, they tower 60 or 70 feet above the road, you know, so you don't have equity in terms of the types of trees that you have, whereas dealing with the burlap, you're dealing with something at chest height on the ground. And there's a few weeks in which the burlap practice is utilized. It's not a full spring through fall season.
So would it cover all the wards?
It's difficult to do across the rural countryside, given, the fact that we have over 180 kilometers of road times 2 because you've got 2 boulevards. So that would far exceed our capacities or our resources. And the infestation is not equal across all areas of the township. So even in urban air, we have areas last year where the gypsy moth infestation was not as dominant as other portions of the of urban air.
See, and it didn't hit my area, and did it hit your area, Councillor Ossner or Councillor Roman? It
Yes.
did hit you, Councillor Roman? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it really hit Councillor Gillespie's area. And so this situation doesn't solve her problem.
And most of the impact was on private property in the rural countryside, just given the significant wooded areas. And
So-
that's private property.
How, Councillor Gillespie, how do we make it better? What can we make work? Do we assist people by making sure they can purchase the burlap and the supplies, or what can we do?
Well, I think we have to get out with public announcements early in the season and tell people that we will not be spraying and that they need to do this process of the burlap bags. Like, really, if it is on their property, we shouldn't be responsible for that. The only the one part I'm worried about is the Branchton Trust forest out in Branchton. I don't know if it was affected as much because only one part of Branchton was as well, which is very weird. So I say that is a little, because you really can't cover all those trees. Guess we can hope from drift from Brant County coming our way.
CEO McNeely.
So Madam
And then
Mayor, as I mentioned last evening, I've had discussions with regional officials, and the Regional Forestry Office has agreed that they would make themselves available to assist private landowners and provide them advice based on the situation or the circumstances as they are presented. So it will vary from property to property depending upon what's observed, but they would then bring their technical capacity and provide some direction or options for an individual landowner then to pursue. So it would be more of a resource component acting as an advisor.
So that's what we got to pull that together, get the information out to the public. Councillor Gillespie.
Is the GRCA planning on doing some spraying? Because
The
that,
USA always sprays their land zoning. Councillor, I forgot Councillor Ossner had his hand up before. I apologize.
okay, well, that would
Sorry,
affect some
you
of the land.
wanna go ahead, finish?
Go ahead, Pam, finish.
Well, that, spraying the GRCA land would affect or cover some of the land in North Humphreys Township, I would assume. So,
Yeah, they spray. They sprayed last year. They'll spray again this year. Councillor Ossner and then CEO McNeely.
I was just gonna mention that farmers can get a hold of malathion or diazinon. When I went to TSC last year to try and find this other concoction that you can use, they had locked up in a cage malathion and diazinon. He said, if you're a farmer, you can get it. But I couldn't because I needed a pesticide license or be a farmer or have a pesticide license. So maybe I don't know. Maybe we can try and find a pest control company or something that may if you will strike a deal. Sorry.
No, you froze for a while, but go ahead.
Yeah, so that maybe we can have some sort of, contract with a pesticide company to give us a reduced rate if residents need their trees sprayed and stuff like that. Then it'll be on our Township North Humphreys website that they can go to this authorized person, whatever, you know, just to help out, because you know, if we're even to think of spraying everybody's trees and stuff like that, that is going to be a daunting, expensive task. And you know, next year it could be Japanese beetles again, and you know, then we're into spraying something different.
CEO McNeely, you had your hand up.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just want to clarify the GRCA has over the last few years undertaken an aerial spray program, but it's been on select woodlots. It hasn't been all GRCA properties. And typically it's based upon the previous year's surveillance that they've undertaken, where the critical mass or density of gypsy moth has exceeded a certain threshold. And at that point in time, they've intervened on, as I said, selected properties, but it's not a universal application across all of their land holdings within the watershed.
Okay, so for this item, bringing it back to budget, we don't really have any recommendations for any changes to the budget for this, just a communication program, which we will find in our regular expenses for any kind of advertisements. Okay, so the next item, number 3, the expanded internet program. There is no funding right now in the 2021 budget. However, council discussions are ongoing with proposed budget that we discussed last night. And there is a reserve that's been set aside for $229,260. And a report will come back to council if there is going to be any work done on this. And there'll be a proposal, and potentially there could be some grants that could also assist us if there is going to be any type of project. So is there any further discussion for the budget?
Councillor Osman.
Just a quick question on that internet program. Is that internet program set up to give internet out to countrysides that don't have internet access, or is that are we looking at something, for example, to enhance the business internet for our businesses? Because we've had numerous complaints about the internet speed and how it's difficult for some businesses, and they pay an awful lot of tax money. And we would not want them to leave the township because their internet's bad. And so is that program kind of cover everything? Is that what it's set for?
CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through to Councillor Ossner. So I'm actually participating in a virtual meeting tomorrow along with my 3 counterparts in Woolwich, Wilmot, and Wellesley. It was a meeting we set up earlier with the executive director of SWIFT, Mr. Barry Field. Purpose of the meeting was to drill down a little bit further on what the eligibility criterion are for both the federal and provincial programs that were released end of November, early December of 2020. In some respects, the program is still being shaped. However, what we are led to believe that they're using the 5010 service that was historically put in place. And as such, most of AIR, including our business parks, as well as the Cedar Creek 401 business parks, would not be eligible if we were to utilize one or both of those funding streams from the upper levels of government. So I'm bringing forward a report on the 8th, coming out of tomorrow's meeting. And we have framed the discussions to better understand what we can do either through SWIFT, perhaps as the 4 townships, or as an individual municipality, to try and cull out interest from the private sector, to utilize endorsements from the township to identify underserviced areas, which are principally in the rural countryside, to secure those upper level governments. Council may look at utilizing portions of that reserve account that Ms. Stedel identified to target areas where we have internet service or the 5010 service. However, we know that it's not sufficient enough based on the nature of activity that's occurring. So that could be portions of the downtown, it could be the business parks that are found in urban air or along the 97-401 corridor. And or council may also look at targeting certain clusters of the existing communities let's say the Wrigley Road community, and incentivize and try and find a private sector partner. The other aspect is SWIFT is working on SWIFT 2 in terms of trying to identify how they could move to the next generation of provincial and federal funding, what that would look like, and what the contributions would be from upper tier governments, the province, and the region. So we're going to learn a little bit more about SWIFT 2 as part of tomorrow's discussion as well. So I'll be bringing all of that information. So there may be some immediate opportunities where we leverage township dollars to incentivize internet service providers. There could be a strategy where we co-sponsor through letters of support and try and bring forward the private sector to leverage those upper level dollars. And then the longer term or midterm strategy may be some variation of SWIFT 2. And perhaps it's the accumulation of all of these areas that may witness enhanced broadband through significant portions of the rural countryside and some site-specific areas where we know business relies heavily on large volumes of data being moved, and the current 50-10 scenario does not support consistently that kind of business trade.
Councillor Ossner.
Just was one quick comment. And even if this with the SWIFT program, stuff like that, like, I mean, Starlink is out. Starlink is going to be up and fully functional. It's pretty much fully functional now, but it's expensive internet, but there's no running of the wires and stuff. It's all via satellites. And when you look at the infrastructure costs, the multi-millions of dollars of infrastructure cost, it's going to be in the long run cheaper to put up a dish and have the Starlink internet service, and it is supposedly lightning fast, but we don't have complete details, but a lot of rural communities that have never had internet, like indigenous communities that have never had internet, they were shipped 60 Starlink dishes, and they're getting another 40. So yeah, it's going to kind of be a game changer, I think.
That's what I was looking into, was that trying to do the satellite type thing. And also, I think we as a municipality should, again, push our governments to make internet essential service. I can't believe that fiber runs through our township, but they won't link up Roseville. The main cable for Rogers runs right through Roseville. They went through one of the people's backyards, and the people said, "Can I hook up?" And they said, "If you pay me $80,000, you can hook up," even though they went through their backyard, which to me is disgusting. So, I mean, it should be mandatory. If the link runs past a resident, they have to allow that resident to hook up. And I think in making it an essential service. Go ahead, Pam, go for it, fight for it, go Pam.
It's right outside my front door and they won't hook me up to it. Like, honestly, I can't.
Plant a tree. Go ahead and plant a tree.
Yeah,
Get a big
amount of homes
shovel
that
and
got
plant a tree.
pathetic, really. I said, the amount of homes in the whole region that got the SWIFT incentive, it was pathetic,
Yeah.
really.
Yep. Councillor Roman.
Yeah.
But, you know, on that note, I mean, I've had business owners approach me on Mellor Drive who have noted that there's high-speed internet at the township offices, but it's not on Mellor Drive and it's not out to MCON, and they want to know when they're going to get the internet out here, the high-speed internet out here. We still have Bell telephone lines we're using. So gotta be careful. We're kind of in the same boat ourselves. We haven't extended the internet to the business parks.
I'm saying everybody, we've got to make it essential service. And you know, with this government, they're for business. They should be hooking you guys up right away. So I think it has to come from our government. And until it does, we're all going to be doing this strange type of dance, trying to get it. But I agree with you, Councillor Robin. should be everywhere. The cable's already running through our communities. We should be allowed to tie it. So anyways, so things are happening, not as quickly as we probably all want, but they are happening. Any other comments on the high-speed internet? Seeing none, next is the speed signs.
So this was brought
Carol,
up.
the $7,500, is that for 2 to 3?
Just the recommendation was to install the speed signs, and they're actually the flashing ones. So Cyrus Reif is in the call. I don't know if Cyrus, you want to speak to this. We put an estimate of $7,500 into the budget, or we're suggesting that it be added on. But Cyrus, did you want to explain what these signs are? Maybe not.
Maybe he's not there right now.
He's there. I don't know. He may be having problems with the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there you go, Cyrus. Go ahead.
Okay, sorry. I apologize. So I talked to our supplier, and they there's quite a range in speed signs, obviously, anywhere from about $3,000 a piece up to $6,000-7,000. Realistically, I think the one we've got right now is it's a really good one. The ones that we could look into for extras or ones that we want to purchase, he assured me that for around $7,000 we could purchase 2. They do the digital readout things. They do car counts. They're not top of the line, but they're they're solar and battery powered to enhance each other. And if you're down, if anybody's been down Paris Way, Paris has tons of them now. You'll see them all over the place. And I would assume the ones that we'd be looking at, if we could get a couple for around the $7,000 mark, would be similar to those ones. So it looks pretty promising, and he assures me that they're of good quality. So yeah, I think the amount's probably good for a couple.
Ms. Dettel, how will that impact the budget?
So it would take us, I believe, from 0.5% increase in the taxes up to about 0.6% in the tax rate.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
That's the 7,000, not the 7,500 that I had noted. So that could be amendment to that resolution, Ashley.
Any other comments? Anybody against it? Okay, looks like that's in.
Okay, and so the last one was the discussion at the end of last evening was the tax rate reduced to 0. So consideration to reduce the tax rate to 0 from the proposed point. That should be 0.05%. Sorry, 0.5%. There's an extra 0 there. It was raised as an item to be discussed. Staff calculated approximately $30,000 would have to be raised from other revenues besides taxation, or expenditures would have to be reduced to achieve this amount. And then this discussion that we just had where we just added the 7,000, that would have to be added on top of that. So it would actually be $37,000 that we would have to reduce from the budget or increase from revenues.
Okay, let's open the discussion. Councilor Roman.
So I guess my question last night was, I thought we had money left over from the province. I think there's a COVID emergency fund. I thought we had $100,000 that we could use some of that money for this 37,000, but apparently we're not allowed to do that. Is that what I'm told now?
Ms. Dettel.
So the funding from the Emergency Restart Fund, the funding that we've received, the Safe Restart, which I talked about at the very beginning, that 222,000, and then the additional 94,000. That's not the COVID contingency fund of the $100,000. That's separate. So part of it is the money that's levied from we're receiving from the province and the federal government. We need to justify that we're not going to be going into a deficit with that money. So it is hard to say, oh, we just want to get to 0 with that money. So that's why, because we have to justify what it's being utilized against, and what we're using it against is the reduced revenues that we're, and the losses that we're creating with the expenditures for the PP&E.
Councillor Roman.
So just for clarification, the COVID contingency fund of 100,000, that's from the provincial government? That's what you're talking about, Shelley?
Sorry, the COVID contingency fund, the 100,000 is a separate amount that council actually set aside. We had the surplus at the end of 2019. And
That's what I was referring to. That's the amount of money I'm talking, the 100,000. We have this money set aside. We have not used it. So I'm suggesting we take 37,000 out of that COVID contingency fund and reduce the budget down to zero. The tax, not the levy, the tax rate down to zero.
Which would be equivalent to $30,000, correct? That $100,000 was put aside for COVID? COVID didn't exist back then, though, did it? CEO McNeely, catch me up.
So Madam Mayor, at year end, when we brought forward the year end statements for 2019, we were in the infancy of COVID. And this was before any federal or provincial programs were set aside to help municipalities deal with COVID. Council, out of an abundance of caution, took 100,000 out of the 2019 surplus and set up a COVID-19 reserve. So those monies were earmarked for COVID-related impacts, but they're at the discretion of Township Council because they were exclusively municipal dollars. Ms. Stedel had identified, after we set that reserve account up, we've received 2 installments under the Safe Restart. Initially 222,000, and then just more recently in the last few weeks, the 94,000. With those 2 accounts, there are strings attached. They are to assist municipalities to deal with the one-time pressures associated with COVID. So things like significant loss of revenue, increased costs associated with protective equipment, sanitizing and disinfecting equipment and materials, and similar aspects associated with COVID. So what Councillor Rowland, I believe, is asking is, do we look as a municipality at the 100,000 that council set up and tap into that by the amount of 37,000 to bring the tax rate down to zero? So you would still have in reserve the residual of that amount, plus the 92,000 that the province has just recently deposited into the corporate accounts.
Discussion, folks, because it looks pretty good to me. Now, Councillor Austin.
I think given the year we've had, given the hardships that the residents have, I don't think it would be a bad thing for this year to try and get this budget to 0%. I think that it would really send a message that we're actually putting a thought process to what we do, and we're taking our residents into account when we're making these decisions, not just numbers and papers.
And see, this doesn't fly against what I was talking about last night, because the region is going to dip into a whole bunch of money to up the cost of stuff, but not put it on the taxpayer this year. But that uppage of cost goes into next year on top of whatever growth is next year. This is totally different. Councillor Roman.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, for clarifying, because that was a question last night about using reserves. And as you know, we've done that in the past, this township, and I don't want to go back there. But this $100,000 is not a reserve. It's basically a COVID emergency fund that we have not used for an entire year. So I think it'd be appropriate at this time to use some of that money to help our residents.
And I still think this is going to be a tough year, but with the money we've already set aside, on top of the 63,000 that's left over, we may be okay. Councillor Gillespie, what do you think?
I was wondering how many people took advantage of the waiving of interest fees on taxes prior to this? Like approximately how many people? Was it a big amount of people, or?
I don't have the actual numbers. I can tell you that people did take advantage of it, that there was a lot of delayed payments that occurred. But I cannot tell you the reasons either as to why they took advantage of that, because it was just open to everybody. So I can't tell if it was because they were having issues with, financing, or just the fact that they weren't going to get charged interest for 3 months, that they took advantage of that. So, but we did see that people were not, mortgage companies or pre-authorized payments, those were continuing to be made. People that pay their tax bills by themselves, they were coming in and they were paying them actually on the changed due dates. It was 3 months later, but I don't have the actual numbers.
Do you know, with the new shutdowns of jobs, a lot of people are going to be pushed out of work in the next week. And this would send a really strong message of compassion. I'm concerned that people are going to lose their homes. People that, and employers aren't paying them, and some of them can apply for the ESSER, but some can't. Ms. Dettel.
So just one of the things, and the area treasurers, we've been following what has been going on with payments of taxations throughout the region. Our tax payments are actually being done higher. People are paying more, they're paying faster. There are less arrears of taxes this year for the Township of North Dumfries than there was in 2019. And most of the rest of the cities and townships are finding the same thing, is that they may not be in a better position, but they are not worse off. So our tax arrears have not been growing this year because of COVID. Now, we don't know what will happen in the future, but we have all made the best arrangements that we can with our ratepayers in order to get them on the pre-authorized payments, or to get their payments made through the mortgage company, so that it's more automatic, and it seems to be working. So we are not seeing an effect on the arrears at this point.
Councilor McCreary, your thoughts?
I am not so concerned about symbolically reducing it to zero. It's so close to zero now, it almost is zero. Because I think the average person's tax from North Dumfries was only going to increase by $4. Is that what the calculation that Treasurer Stadal did? So
why did I hear $11? That might have been today. Too many numbers.
Our tax rate is definitely a lot lower this year than it's been in the past. Like last year, our tax rate increase was 3%. And then if you add the increase created by the increase in the fair market value of people's houses, their increase last year was like 5 to 6%. And it was like that in 2019 as well. So I certainly think we are demonstrating to the public that we're holding the line here. We're doing the best that we can to keep the tax rate down. I don't feel the need to take anything out of surplus just to symbolically get it down to zero. I'm fine with the budget the way it is.
I kind of torn too, because I think once you get down to zero, people keep expecting it. When I campaigned, when I was running against Kim Dowden, the number of houses that I went by that said, Kim and Joe kept our taxes down to zero. So, that's a concern. But this is a different year. I think people will understand the difference. Councillor Ostner.
I would tend to agree with you, except for the current economics that we're having now. This is the perfect time to be able to do something like this, because we are so close. And we can do it, and it's not going to be a big financial burden for the township to do this. However, I think we said yesterday it was what, $220 a year or something. Okay, that's $20 a household. I mean, believe it or not, $20 a household for some people is the difference between milk or powdered milk, or Kraft Dinner versus regular noodles, or like it's $20 for some people makes a difference. Sometimes it's hard to see that when we're in the position that we're fortunate enough to be in, but for some people it makes a difference.
Councillor Ruhlman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just recall 6 years ago, this township was in a lot of trouble, big deficit, $750,000. We asked the residents to have faith in us that we were going to lead them out of the desert, take them back to a good place. Now here we are 6 years later, the residents are suffering, the township's in good shape. I think it's time for us to turn around and say to the people, you were there for us when we had a hard time, you stood by us, now we stand by you. So I'm in favor of going to zero.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to put it to a vote? How do we want to handle this? Or just direction? Ms. Stero smiling, but I'll let CEO McNeely go first.
Madam Mayor, it will require a vote because it requires a change to the draft budget as presented to council. So you would signal not only what amount you wish brought down, but where the monies would be sourced to bring it down to that 0% tax rate increase.
Okay, so we need the motion then. Ashley, how would you word it, Ms. Stero?
So I believe we worded in the resolution. Ashley,
You got a resolution on?
Ashley, did you have something that you already got drafted? I know she's working on something.
Yes. I do have, so I have the wording that 37,000 be allocated from the COVID contingency fund to bring the tax rate to zero.
Is that all we require, CEO McNeely? I thought he wanted more in there. We lost him. Do we need more in there, Ms. Stero?
Will you repeat that one more time, Ashley?
That 37,000 be allocated from the COVID contingency fund to bring the tax rate to zero.
Is that sufficient, CEO McNeely?
That should work, yes.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that will be sufficient. Now, the extra 7,000 that brings us up to 37 was to account for funding to acquire 2 of the mobile speed signs.
Speed signs. Yeah.
So we also need a motion to add to the budget the acquisition of the 2 speed signs at an amount of 7,000.
And I think Ashley has that drafted as well.
So I've taken the resolution that was pre-prepared for you, Mayor Foxton, and under the portion that says that the draft 2021 budget be amended as follows, I've added an F and a G to include the speed signs and that the direction to bring the budget down for the zero tax rate.
Okay, I can't find it here.
So do we want to have the resolution for just that portion brought forward at this point in time and then have the discussion on the capital budget amendment for the preparation of the design drawings for the twinning as a separate resolution?
I would think so.
Okay.
So do we want separate resolutions then, correct?
Okay. So I can read what I have prepared pertaining to those 2 separate amendments, and then we can deal with the rest in a separate motion.
Perfect.
So if, I guess I'll read what I've got, but that the draft 2021 budget be amended to add the following: add 7,000 to the budget to purchase 2 to 3 speed signs to inform traffic if they are traveling above the posted speed, and 2, add 37,000 be allocated from the COVID contingency fund to bring the tax rate to zero.
We want them in one more. Is that 2 motions there that you've got there, Ashley?
Sorry, let me just fine tune it.
So that is in addition to the first part of the motion. So the first part of the motion, it actually reads that report FIN number 0121 regarding the draft budget be received. Number 2, that the draft budget be amended to add the following, and we've already discussed A, B, C, D, and E. This is an add-on of F and G. And then we'll have portion 3. And
Oh, I see what you're saying. You're
So we
adding
are,
B on there. I understand.
yeah, and then number 3, there's actually 2, there's an A and a B now, but there is no part 4.
Okay, I understand that. So, do you want to go with the original down to adding F and G and then A and B under the capital projects? The tablets and the procurement procedures? And then we won't touch page 3 yet, correct?
We won't, yeah, then the number 4 item we'll come back to. So can you know, I don't have that on a, you can't do a screen share with that, Ashley, to show the full resolution?
I'm just sorry, which part, where does it break off?
So Ashley, if you go to the resolution and it says, and that the draft 2020 budget be amended to add the following. And then you
Mhm.
go to A and E, then an F is going to be the $7,000 for the speed sign.
Right, yep,
And G is going to be that the 37,000 be taken out.
allocated from the COVID. And then
Correct.
just stop it at that point?
No,
Well,
and then.
no, then we're going to go into the next part too. And that the capital project be, that are being completed in 2021, which are recently budgeted in 2020, is the procurement for $10,000 and the fire tablets and for 15,000.
Okay,
Right.
and we're,
So that whole page, that first page, that page.
okay, we cut it at that part, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
But you're going to put in F and G.
yes. F and G, okay, so yes, so we have the moved by Councillor Rowland and seconded by Councillor McCreary, if they are both okay with moving and seconding it. So that report FIN number 01-2021 regarding the 2021 draft budget be received, and that the draft 2021 budget be amended to add the following. A, that the Safe Restart funding to be received in 2021, as announced by the Province of Ontario in December 2020 in the amount of $94,000, be transferred to a Safe Restart Fund reserve to offset future COVID-19 pandemic related costs. B, unspent reserve funds from 2019 capital projects, which came in under budget, be allocated to the infrastructure reserve in the amount of $66,180. C, the estimated cost for the personal protective equipment materials due to the COVID-19 pandemic for 2021 be increased by $11,935. D, a transfer from the Safe Restart Fund reserve in the amount of $78,115 be allocated to cover any deficit that would result in the reallocation of the unspent 2019 reserve and the increased estimate for personal protective equipment and materials due to the COVID-19 pandemic. E, add the purchase of a battery-powered positive pressure ventilation fan in the amount of $7,000 to be funded by a grant which has been received from Enbridge Gas for $7,000. F, add $7,000 to the budget to purchase 2 to 3 speed signs to inform traffic if they are traveling above the posted speed. G, $37,000 be allocated from the COVID contingency fund to bring the tax rate to 0, and that the capital project that are being completed in 2021, which was originally budgeted for in 2020, be carried forward to the 2021 budget, including A, procurement procedures improvements, $10,000 to be funded from the 2019 Capital Reserve Fund as approved in the 2020 budget. B, fire tablets for crisis maps in vehicles, $15,000 to be funded from the modernization grant funds as approved in the 2020 budget.
Okay, Ashley, when you're typing that up, if you've noticed where we've had the numbers up in items A through to E, there's not a minus sign in front of them. But in A, in the capital projects one, the procurement one, we've got, it looks like minus 10,000. Can we take that minus out? Thank you.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I think it's just a dash, but yes, I can
Yeah,
take
but
that
we'll
out.
get rid of it because it does look like a minus.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so if everyone's fine with that. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that motion?
Yes.
Councillor Rowland,
Yes.
Councillor Ossner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
All right, so we move on now. And the last part of this says, and that staff revised the 10-year capital forecast for discussion at the January 28, 2021 budget meeting with the following: construction of a twin pad for 2024-25, preparation of the design drawings for the adaptive reuse of the ACC for indoor recreation use in 2023, construction of the adaptive reuse of the ACC for 2025/26, and that staff remove from the capital forecast ice plant upgrades and associated work at the ACC. Open for discussion, folks. Councilor Roman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to get clarification on the CCG. I thought we were asking them for more money, but is it my understanding they're only prepared to put in $50,000 of the cost of the design? I thought they were in favor of working with us more closely on this project.
CEO McNeely.
Madam Mayor, you may remember at the time of the December 14th meeting when the original staff report was presented to, I guess, test the consultant's indoor ice strategy and then suggest areas where we thought that there were changes necessary. And then we established a framework as a recommendation for council as a pathway to go forward. We did have a funding program laid out as part of that December 14th staff report. We brought forward an addendum that day that formed part of the agenda. And in that memorandum, we clarified that the CCG had not committed funding, that they would consider participating. So what we have now is a letter dated yesterday, I believe, from the CCG board through Chair Hutchings, which has indicated that they would provide $50,000 to go toward phase 1, which is the preparation of architectural drawings related to the twinning project. So they have focused and confirmed the actual spend that they would make as a contribution. In that letter, they also indicated, obviously, that they were interested in partnering with the township and a better understanding as it related to future fundraising that would go toward the bricks and mortar component associated with the construction phase as a second step.
Councilor Roman and then Councilor Austin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just as a follow-up, though, I want to make sure that we're very careful when we work with any group in the township for fundraising without an MOU. If we're going to work with the CCG in any way, if we're going to even accept $50,000, I want a clear understanding of what they're expecting. If they're expecting that they will be designing this arena and they'll be calling the shots, then I think council needs to be careful about that. I want to make sure that we have an MOU in place, that they understand their role, we understand our role, so that there's no confusion. And perhaps they're not the right people to do the fundraising. If that's the case, fine. Maybe we can find somebody else. I would like to work with the CCG, but I think it has to be very clearly defined.
Councilor Austin and then CEO McNeely.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I don't see the CCG that way. They've done a lot of great things in the past. They've put on a lot of great events in the past. They've fundraised a lot of money for our facility in the back. Whether there's an MOU or not, if council wishes for that, that's fine. But I have full faith that the CCG will step up just like they've stepped up in the past. And I wouldn't want to treat them any other way other than to welcome them to continue to do things in the community as they've done in the past.
CEO McNeely and then Councilor McCreary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Going back to the December 14th report, in the suggested steps for 2021, one area that we did talk about was leveraging the historic capacity of the CCG. The reality is they've got a framework in place. They've proven to be successful in raising monies within the community. And, obviously, as part of that funding model that was identified in the December report, we have a big ask with a contribution of $2 million toward the bricks and mortar campaign. We did identify that it would be beneficial to have an agreement that would speak to the roles and responsibilities of the partners in this exercise. But that's just to ensure that there is no cross communications and everyone understands their lanes. And, you know, obviously we're all working together then toward the common objective of modernizing and providing a second ice surface here at the NDCC to build capacity going forward for the community in broader recreational activities.
Ms. McCreary, Councilor McCreary.
Thank you, Mayor Foxton. I was really disappointed when I saw this letter from the CCG that they were only going to commit $50,000 to this. I think it's well known that they've got amount of money, well over $500,000 that they're holding right now. And then that money is being held and was raised specifically for the purpose of building the twin pad. So they've given us really less than 10%. I'm quite disappointed in that. And I'm wondering if maybe we should be asking them to make a larger contribution. I really would have hoped to see more at this time.
I had a discussion with the CCG in regards to, they warned me about this letter coming. And they said, you're absolutely right. They fundraised for the twin pad, not for the design. So the money that's left over is going to be their seed money and part of the initial money going to the second pad. And I think that's fine. You know, we don't have a right to other people's money. You know what, let's say the CCG didn't exist and we got the report we got. Would we not have to seriously consider twinning the pad? Have we not talked about the ACC's life is over? The CCC is a bonus, but we're a municipality. We called for a consultant. Consultant gave us the report. There's a hard job to look at that report and decide how we're going to move forward. And anything else, in my opinion, is bonus. I don't think anybody owes us anything. This is wonderful because it's going to save our taxpayers. And so I'm very grateful for that. But this was a report given to our municipality by consultants we hired to say, how should we be moving forward? And they've given us a clear direction. And so now we have to just move forward in that direction. And I'll take any bonus I can get in any way I can get it. Any other comments? CEO McNeely.
So, Madam Mayor, the memorandum that was shared with Council late this afternoon has two elements as it relates to the twin pad project. The first component is to ask for an amendment to the 2021 capital budget to initiate phase one, which is the spend of $375,000 for the preparation of architectural drawings related to the twin project, with $50,000 being provided through the Center for the Community Group and the residual to be drawn from the Energy Plus reserve account. So that would then amend, if adopted by council, or some variation to that was adopted by council, that would amend the draft 2021 capital. The second part of that memorandum speaks to the 10-year capital forecast, which is the subject of discussion on the evening of January the 28th. And why that second aspect was put in was because right now, in the 10-year capital forecast, and we've articulated this for the last 2 or 3 years, we have been double counting between both a twinning project for the NDCC as well as undertaking extensive rehabilitation and replacement for key components of the ice plant, the boards, glass system, and the concrete pad at the ice surface itself at the ACC. Well, obviously, if we're going to go ahead with a twinning project, then we would remove that double count as it relates to the ACC, and then plug in the new draft numbers as they relate to NDCC construction and the conversion, adaptive reuse of the ACC when the ice activity ceases to a warm side recreational use. That then informs reserves, reserve continuities, potentially debt funding or financing going forward for the rest of the facilities program over the 10-year period. And that's why I think it's important council see that element in its adjusted composition, because it will affect reserve contributions, reserve continuity, as well as debt exposure to deal with what is still a very big project or projects. So council then would have that aspect.
Any other questions or comments? Are we good to go with the motion, Ms. Sage?
Yes, we can move forward with the motion as presented. I just need a mover and a seconder for the motion.
Councillor Ossner, Councillor Roman.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor Rollman, that the 2021 capital budget be amended to include phase 1, preparation of design drawings for the twinning of the arenas at the NDCC in the amount of $375,000, with $50,000 funded by the Center for the Community Group, the CCG, and the balance from the Energy Plus Reserve. And that staff revise the 10-year capital forecast for discussion at the January 28th, 2021 budget meeting with the following. 1, construction of the twin pad in 2024-25. 2, preparation of design drawings for the adaptive reuse of the ACC for indoor recreational use in 2023. 3, construction of the adaptive reuse of the ACC for 2025-26. And 4, and that staff remove from the 10-year capital forecast ice plant upgrades and associated work at the ACC. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Rollman?
You hear me? Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
Okay, so that brings to an end all of the items that were proposed to be discussed for tonight's meeting. Any changes for the budget? So it looks as if we have a budget proposed to go forward. Thank you very much, everybody, for your assistance with getting us to this point. Staff, council. What will happen now is on January the 28th, we'll reconvene for a meeting at 6 p.m. and we will walk through the updated 10-year capital forecast, and the amendments we just made will be included in that. And we will talk to council about getting agreement in principle for the 10-year capital projects or capital forecast. And at the end of that meeting, hopefully there'll be a resolution that's presented to move forward with the 2021 budget to the February 8th meeting. And what we'll do, if it's okay with council at that time, we will bring it forward as a resolution for approval and the bylaw as well for the same evening. And then we can start, so staff can move forward with starting to implement the 2021 budget.
I want to at this time thank staff and council. We may not always agree, but we have good discussions, and I'm very proud of you all for the discussion, for the hard work council put in. And I'm very proud of you all right now. So thank you very much. And now we will go on to the bylaw, confirmatory bylaw, please.
Certainly. So moved by Councillor Ossner and seconded by Councillor McCreary that bylaw number 3215-2021, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council on January 12th, 2021, be read a first, second, third time and be finally passed, signed, and sealed by the mayor and clerk. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rollman?
Yes.
Councillor Ossner?
Yes.
Councillor McCreary?
Yes.
And Councillor Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay, that carries.
And the adjournment?
So moved by Councillor McCreary and seconded by Councillor Gillespie that whereas business before the special budget council meeting has been completed at 7:36 p.m. And be it resolved that this meeting adjourns and meets again on Monday, January 18th at 6 p.m. for a council meeting. So Mayor Foxton, your vote on that?
Yes.
Councillor Rolliman,
Yes.
Councillor Osner,
Yes.
Councillor McCreary,
Yes.
Councillor Gillespie.
Yes.
Okay, that carries and we are adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night.
Andrew,